Hello and welcome to Box Office Chat, the weekly show from Movie Burner Entertainment where we discuss the top 10 films within the UK box office. This is for the weekend 6th of July to 8th, and joining me as ever to discuss the box office is Stephen. What have we got at number 1 this week, Stephen?
And its fifth week, John, is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It grossed another 1.3 million over the weekend, overall 37.1 million. Not really got a lot more to say about the film, John. Thoroughly enjoyed it, very entertaining. A lot bigger and bolder, funnier, more action than the first film. Thought it was a good film. Expect it to be number 1 for maybe another few weeks, but it's doing okay.
Yeah, Stephen, I've not got much more to add to this one either. It was also a very enjoyable film. For me personally, I know you enjoyed it as well. Wasn't much I didn't enjoy, I have to say. Thought it was, as you say, a bigger, more grandiose version of the first film. It turned into a traditional monster film at the end, where you've also got the Indoraptor stalking the inhabitants of this big mansion and a couple of these criminal underworld figures. I thought there was a couple of good antagonists. The Indoraptor was creepy and enjoyable. The relationship between Blue and Chris Pratt's character, who I always forget the name of, was enjoyable. The chemistry was great between him and a CG dinosaur. That's just Chris Pratt though, he's such a good actor. He can work with CG. He obviously has to do it with Rocket and Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Brought great humour to the role again. I liked his performance alongside Bryce Dallas Howard as well. The little girl was decent. But in terms of the grossing though, because that's what we're discussing here, it's grossed just over £37 million obviously in the UK now. That's decent. It's not mind-blowingly spectacular by any means. It's been out how many weeks now?
5 weeks.
It's been out 5 weeks. It's not mind-blowing by any means, Stephen. It could have been much higher up. It's certainly not going to break trouble the top 10 within the all-time grossings. But it's doing very well in Japan, I have to say. I think it's crossed about £75 million after its opening weekend in Japan. So it's just continuing to grind on. It's now sitting at a total gross of just under 1.1 billion worldwide. And I mean, it's not going to trouble, I think, the original Jurassic World film, which I think grossed about $1.7 billion. But it's a very successful sequel, and I'm sure it will spawn another exciting chapter in this Jurassic World trilogy, with of course Colin Trevorrow coming back to helm that film. I said it last week, I said it the week before, I think. This is how you do a sequel trilogy. Disney should take note. You set up interesting characters and a story, you develop them, you don't kill them off, and then you go into the third and final film with a bit of excitement on a cliffhanger, with the dinosaurs in this case going out to the open world to wreak havoc, and you go into the end of a trilogy with a bang. That's how you handle a trilogy, a sequel trilogy. You introduce new characters, you explore the story, you keep fans excited and wondering what's going to happen next. Not got much more to add though. It's doing okay in Britain, doing much better overseas and globally as a total.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's a common theme throughout all these films is that this human moral sort of pattern, their morals in playing God. I think that's one of the sort of key ingredients to all of the films, if we're taking into account the Jurassic Park trilogy as well. As you said, you know, the original Jurassic World performed amazingly at the box office, but that was due to anticipation of this new franchise reintroducing an already successful franchise that kind of maybe dipped in that third film, Jurassic Park, but nevertheless I think it's did very well, and this second part of this trilogy has done exceptionally well. But just moving on now to number 2 in the box office this week. It's in its first week, John. This is the First Purge. Yeah. And the numbers actually confuse me here, because it says the weekend it grossed 1.2 million, but overall 1.8 million. It's only its first week. I don't know where this other £600,000 came from.
It might be that maybe started around about the Thursday or something like that, or the Wednesday. Maybe started early, and then they're taking the weekend grossings also, and then the grossings prior to the weekend into account. I mind seeing the trailer for this film when I went to see Hereditary a couple of weeks back, and it didn't really strike me as a film I was going to go and watch, I've got to be honest. I think it's a horror film. Most notably it stars Marissa Tomei, and basically I think it's about a corrupt government setting up some purge, if you'd like, a lawful 12-hour period where crimes are allowed to go committed and then no one will be punished for it. It's an experiment to see if they can get people to weed down the population or something like that. I don't know, I'd seen the trailer, it looked okay. I think it was based around an African American guy who was trying to help people. I'm not too sure what it's about. I don't think I'm going to go and see it. It's probably an interesting concept. You mentioned, Steve, before we came on, it was a bit like a Battle Royale thing. They seem to be following this Battle Royale theme. Even in computer games, you've got Fortnite, and they're doing it with this film as well. You've got an open city where you can go and commit absolute havoc and get away with it for 12 hours. Some people are doing it, most people aren't doing it. And from the trailer, I believe the government of this political party starts sending the army in, disguised as civilians, to cause anarchy and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go and watch it. It's not getting very good reviews, and that's not doing anything to really tease me out to go to the cinema and see it.
No, John, I've read a few of the reviews as well, and it's not really going down too well. I think IMDb are being very kind to it, giving it the 5.3. This is obviously based on people, rating it. I think it's over 5,000 people have now rated this film on IMDb, but just some of the reviews I did read didn't seem to be going down well. Marissa Tomei in there. I'm not too familiar with the rest of the cast. The director, Gerard McMurray, I'm not too familiar with him. I know that he did a film last year called Burning Sands from 2017. Apart from that, I think he's done a couple of shorts, so this might make or break him, I don't know. He was a producer on Fruitvale Station, so I know that film very well, but I don't know much of him as a director. But just moving on to number 3 here in the box office, John, is Ocean's 8. This is in its third week here at the box office, and it grossed another £800,000, taking it up to 8.5 million over that third week period.
Yes, this is the one we've been discussing for the last few weeks, Stephen, isn't it? It's the all-female take on a classic franchise. It's got a very, very good cast, of course, of Sandra Bullock, Anne Hathaway, Kate Blanchett. I believe Rihanna's in there as well. I've seen reviews, most of them are saying it's not that great a film, that the cast kind of bails it out. It's a very underwhelming affair. But the performances out of most of the actors and actresses, if you'd like to call them actresses and actors, I don't know, are mostly good. And this brings it up to a decent standard, which otherwise, just looking at the story as a whole, it would not reach. I'm babbling on a little bit here. But in terms of grossing, just under £1 million after its third week at the box office, fairly underwhelming. And its total gross is now sitting at 8.5 million over here. It's not great after 3 weeks for a film which has got a $70 million budget. It's not a massive budget by any means, but it's not small either. Its total gross in the United States is significantly better, and its total gross worldwide is sitting at 243 million, just under 244 million pounds. So it's certainly earned its budget back. It's reaching audiences who are into this sort of thing. Clearly a lot of people are into it, because it's earned just under $250 million worldwide. It's not doing so well here. I don't know why that is. It's maybe not connecting with people as well as it is over in the States and maybe other territories internationally. But I'm not going to go and watch it, because I did say Ocean's 8 is not really my thing. Ocean's 11 wasn't my thing. Ocean's 10, I don't know how many Oceans we've had in the past. I know George Clooney done the Ocean's franchise in the 2000s. He had a stellar cast to work with. I didn't go and watch those films. They were fairly underwhelmed. They were never my thing. And this is certainly not going to attract me out, despite having a star-studded cast of Anne Hathaway, Kate Blanchett, so on and so forth.
Yeah, John, these films, as we all know, they're heist films, and I think we both like those kind of storylines. I just feel that these type of films are too slick. Possibly did go under the radar of the likes of The Score, the one with Robert De Niro and Edward Norton. I think Marlon Brando was in there as well. I think that might have been his last film. He did films like that. They don't have that kind of slickness. They're more edgy. As you said, those previous films had, the likes of Brad Pitt in them, George Clooney, as you said, big cast. And I said this a few weeks ago, I think it may be in its first week when I was talking about this, that it has a sort of smugness, about how good are we, how we're really good at what we do. Mm-hmm. And I don't really like that in these type of films. I prefer that kind of underwhelming element to the films like The Score, where you don't think they're going to pull it off, but they just somehow do. With these type of films, especially Ocean's 11, it's just too slick, and you just know they're going to succeed in their mission. But as I previously said, John, I don't think I'll go and see this film in the cinema. I might hang about and maybe catch it on Sky Movies when it comes out eventually. But just moving on now to number 4 in this week's box office is Sicario: Day of the Soldado. Its weekend gross was £300,000, which was very disappointing, I think, for its second week, and grossing 1.5 million overall. Yes, it is disappointing, Stephen, and it's not got a massive budget. I think the estimated budget's about $35 million. Its
Total gross in the United States is just over that. It's sitting at $39.3 million. Its total worldwide gross is now sitting at $55 million. As you said, it's barely broke £1.5 million over here. It's lacklustre. I'm not too sure why it's not doing so great. I don't know what the figures were for the first Sicario film, which was also a bit of a surprise hit. They had Denny Villeneuve though directing that film, who is obviously one of the greatest directors of today's generation. They didn't get him back for this film, and to be fair, it does show they've got Stefano Sollima in to do the directing on this one, and it just missed that little bit of oomph that the first one had, and the little artistic flourishes. I went to see this one last night, and I did enjoy the film for the most part, Stephen, but I just thought it lacked something. I don't know what it was. It had all that great visceral violence that you loved from the first film. The two returning characters of Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin, and Alejandro by Benicio del Toro. Sadly, they didn't get Emily Blunt back again. That showed. There was just that little bit of humanity missing from it. They tried to force Alejandro into that role. He did perform well, Benicio del Toro, to be fair to him. He had a good chemistry with the young girl they stole away, the cartel king's daughter, Isabel Reyes, played by Isabella Mona. He brought that a level of humanity. There was a moment where he shared a connection with a deaf family. His dead daughter from the first film was deaf, so he had that connection as well. But Emily Blunt's character in the first film just brought a level of humanity to the film. She was totally aghast at the atrocities that were happening. She was the audience's perspective into the story, and they just didn't have it in this film. I felt the story itself was a little bit all over the place. I was just confused at one point as to what the hell was going on. There was terrorist atrocities happening at the beginning, suicide bombers. The cartels were smuggling these people over the US border. Then Matt Graver teamed up with Alejandro to try and stop this, go to war with them. And they did this by stealing this cartel king's daughter away. And then there was a whole host of confusion going on. I couldn't get my head around it. They stole her over the border, then they were trying to get back over the border, and there was all sorts of violence breaking out with these smugglers. Alejandro was nearly killed at one point. He was shot in the head, but it went through his mouth. As I said, there was great moments. You had those slick sort of SWAT manoeuvres going on that you'd seen in the first film. Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin, just a psychopath. I love him in it. When he gets angry, there's nothing better. Del Toro, again, amazing as Alejandro. It ended a bit abruptly. It had a cliffhanger, which was clearly them setting up a third film, a second sequel. But I enjoyed it. It was okay. It wasn't a patch on the first film, though, and that's probably why it's not doing so well at the box office. Certainly critically, it's getting average mixed responses, 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, slightly better on IMDb, and that's maybe why it's not connecting with the UK audiences and doing fairly lacklustre.
Yeah, Taylor Sheridan, the writer, he did the first one as well. His previous work on Hell or High Water and Wind River as well, two terrific films. Yeah, as I said last week, John, I did say that I would have to see the first one first. Ashamedly put my hands up here. I didn't see the first one in its initial release. I saw it last week, liked it, didn't love it. It was okay, not my cup of tea, to be honest with you. But now I've seen the first one, I do want to see the second one out of curiosity. I'm very surprised, you saying that they're setting this up for a second sequel. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably based on the success of the first one, but perhaps they shouldn't have made it so open-ended at the end with the possibility of a third film until they saw how this one was performing. Maybe a little bit overconfidence in there. As you said, Emily Blunt is clearly missing from this one. I thought her performance in the first one was key to the first film's success. Yeah. It was very under the radar as well. I think this one's expectations might be disappointing a few people. I take it, just going back to talking about Taylor Sheridan here, I take it it's nothing on the writing part. I take it you just can't pinpoint where it went wrong.
Well, Taylor Sheridan's a fantastic writer. He also done Wind River, as you said, Hell and High Water, one of my favourite films from that year, 2016, I believe, late 2016. I don't know what it was, Stephen, it just felt a little bit disjointed, the story. I don't know why. They stole this girl away and then it just get muddied. I couldn't understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to get her back, maybe try and prize this cartel king out, but then they just get sidetracked. Benicio del Toro's character Alejandro went away with the young girl, and they ended up getting interconnected with these smugglers. This young boy was getting set up to be a smuggler. I believe it was Miguel Hernandez was the character, played by Elijah Rodriguez. And then at the end of the film he says to him, so you want to be a Sicario, and it's very clearly they're setting it up for another film. It was just, it ended very abruptly. I don't know where it went wrong. He's a fantastic writer. I wouldn't say it went wrong, it was a good film, but it just wasn't a patch on the first film. And as you did say, a lot of it's down to Emily Blunt's humanising figure not being there. She was like the audience's viewpoint into this story. Matt Graver and Alessandro are very corrupt sort of figures. They're doing what they think's right, but they don't really have a moral compass. At one point in the film, I was laughing at it, to be fair. Matt Graver was interrogating a terrorist, and he says to him basically, do you think I'm going to waterboard you? Waterboarding's when we can't torture. And then he basically went on to drone strike the chap's house without even flinching. And then I think he threatened to do it to Maury's family travelling in a car. So this is the type of figure you've got. He has a conversation with the president after it, and they're basically defining terrorist. And I think the president says something along the lines of an organisation that will use violence or something like that to get a political gain. And that's exactly what Josh Brolin's character does. So you can see there's not really a good figure in this. And she was the humanising figure. So her being missing, it made the story lack something. I don't know why that was. Maybe she was off busy doing the likes of A Quiet Place. She just couldn't fit into her schedule. But they got Alessandro in to kind of play that role, and it never really worked. He's a cold, calculating figure. And I don't know what it was.
Yeah, director from the first film, Denis Villeneuve, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think he was off doing Blade Runner 2049. I think perhaps because I've searched the internet to find out his reasons for not doing the second one. I don't know if perhaps he's not into doing sequels or not. I don't know. But the only thing I can think of is he was off doing the Blade Runner film and the scheduling, just like Emily Blunt, as you said, John. That probably sort of hindered any scenario where he was going to pick up the second film. But just moving on now to the fifth film in the UK box office, and that is Tag. It's in its second week now. Weekend grossing £300,000, overall 1.1 million. I talked about this last week, John. You went to see this film. Don't think I will go and see this film, although I mean you did give it good feedback. I don't know, it's just not one that I don't think I'll go out and see.
Yeah, it's very much like Game Night from earlier in the year, or maybe even last year. I can't remember when it came out. I went to see that as well. It's an interesting concept. You get a game of tag between adults, and that's the premise for the story. You'd think reading that premise that it doesn't work, it'd be a bit crap. And to be fair, it wasn't an amazingly brilliant film that blew me away, but it was an enjoyable little popcorn flick, bit of escapism. You've got these group of guys who have been playing the same game of tag for 30 years, and one of them, played by Jeremy Renner, Jerry Pierce, hasn't been tagged in that whole time. He's getting married, and they all come together to try and tag him, and he's doing these martial artist moves, and he can spot scents and see shoes underneath disguises and stuff like that, and he's just a really slick guy. And it's basically about friendship and camaraderie and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it, Stephen. In terms of its grossing, it's doing okay. It's not blasting the box office away by any means. It's grossed $63.7 million total worldwide. It only had an estimated budget of $28 million. It's made a profit. As I said, it seems to be quite a divisive film. A lot of people are saying it's a lot of crap, and some people are saying it's decent and enjoyed it, and I'm one of the latter. But that's what films are all like. It's a very subjective subject. Some people will like it, some people will hate it. I liked Ed Helms. I thought he was brilliant as Hoagie. He was quite a tragic figure come the end. He had a bit of an illness going on. That's why he get the friends together to try and tag him, because it was maybe his last chance. And there was some great performances. I liked Tyler Fisher as well. I didn't mention her last week. She was quite a passive-aggressive character. She was the wife of Hoagie Malloy. And she wasn't allowed to play because it was in the rules. It was only boys that were allowed to play from school. So she was sitting in the sidelines, maybe having a conversation with another woman. And then you'd have this action going on. In one case on a golf course, and she's screaming obscenities and telling them, get him, do this and that. So yeah, I enjoyed it. And it's doing okay at the box office. It's not blowing it away. It's barely broke £1 million, but as a whole, internationally, it's doing okay.
I did find that very funny, John, when you said last week about Jeremy Renner using that CG to patch up his fractured right elbow and his left wrist while filming a stunt during this film. It's amazing to think that, the amount of Marvel films this guy's appeared in and the amount of action that he's performed in these films. Not that it's been reported, but he's come out without a scratch. And then he does this film about tag, and that happens to him. So there you go. But just moving on, John, to the next film in our list for this week's box office. There's a film called Adrift. We talked about this last week. It's in its second week now, John, and it's grossed £200,000 over the weekend. Overall, just reaching the £1 million mark. This was directed by Baltasar Kormakur, and it stars Shailene Woodley, Sam Claflin and Grace Palmer.
Yes, this was the one last week, Stephen, and I said was a rom-com. It's set in the middle of a hurricane. It's about these two people come together. I presume they go out on a boating trip in the middle of a hurricane. Who would do that? What the hell's wrong with these people? You've not got a phone, you've not got access to the internet. Is this like the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation where you don't check the weather forecast? But I digress. This film has got a $35 million budget. Where the hell did they use all that budget? That's ridiculous. I would have thought this would have been a small time film, but it's not, and it's barely broke even so far worldwide. Certainly struggling in the UK box office. Maybe people are just sick of this type of film. Maybe they're like me, they think it's a rom-com film and they just don't go along to watch it. I said it last week, I was intrigued by it just because Sam Claflin's in there, and he's a chap that I really do admire. Certainly from Their Finest, I thought he was brilliant in that. I don't really know much else about the rest of the cast. I can't lie, I think we discussed Home and Away last week, and that was the depths we got to, Stephen. With so little to say about the cast that we were discussing Home and Away. I even sang the theme. But yeah, I mean, it's much like the rest of the films in this week's box office in the UK. It's definitely silent. I can almost see the tumbleweed blowing around. The cinemas in this country are going to be dying this week because it's just terrible. The performances of all the films, even the top rating film, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdoms, only grossed £1.3 million at the weekend. That's really poor. And as we'll get further down into the box office, you'll understand that there's some films in there that on any other week wouldn't be there.
I don't think this is getting anything to do with the World Cup. I really don't. Disney can use that excuse all they want. But just getting back, John, I think just looking at that poster, I can see where the confusion lies. That reeks of The Notebook to me. It's definitely got that vibe to it. It looks very romantic there. And it doesn't look like there's much of a storm in that bottom picture either. It looks quite picturesque, actually. Quite fancy being in that boat myself. Yeah, the
little trailer sequence though looks
quite
violent.
It certainly get the vibes of that film, Open Water. Yeah, and it's only at 6 theatres here in Glasgow, which is it's quite meh.
Surprisingly so is this film, Stephen.
Yeah, just moving on, John, to number 7 this week in the box office. It's Patrick. It's earned another £200,000 over the weekend, grossing a massive £700,000 in 2 weeks. This is a film, you and I, we spoke about it last week in its first week. We don't know the reasons apart from it being a kind of dog film. I don't know if it's a talking dog or not. We talked about the cast. I mean, it's got the likes of Amelia Jones in there, Jennifer Saunders, B.T. Edmondson, list goes on. And also, it's got a fantastic director as well in Mandy Fletcher. I think it's just one of those films, I hate dog films. I said this to you last week. It reminds me of Turner and Hooch. I don't see the point in them. Love dogs, by the way. It's nothing to do with that. But for some reason, I just don't like films with dogs, talking dogs, any kind of dogs. Although I did love Scooby-Doo. Yeah.
I don't agree with the dog, Stephen. I did enjoy that A Dog's Life. I think it may have been from last year. And there's been a couple of films that I've enjoyed with dogs, but just not this one. Because apparently... Yeah, Isle of Dogs as well. That was a great little film from Wes Anderson. That's how you do a dog film. But this apparently is a terrible movie. It uses every cliche in the book. It's not original. It's not funny. And it's almost insulting in its banality. And this is just from a review I'm reading straight from NDB, Stephen. It's not great, Stephen, is it? Mandy Fletcher's directed this. I don't think she'll get another directing gig anytime soon. If this is the peak of her ability, I don't imagine it will be. Jennifer Saunders been in there isn't really a positive either. I don't really know what to add to this film. Ed Skrein's in there. That was the guy from Deadpool. I said that last week. The fact that it's got a pug in a leading role, it's just a major put off to me. I don't hate them. I said last week I don't really like pugs. That's a lie. I just think they're aggressive little gits at times. And this pug, it's got a cute little face, but I'm not going to go and watch it. I'm not going to spend money to go and watch it. Certainly not when it's getting such a bad feedback from both critics and audiences alike. And the 700,000 total gross in the UK is probably a fair appraisal of this film. I think it's got about a $7 or $8 million budget. I don't know how it's doing in other territories, but it's probably going to break even at least. You'd think some idiot somewhere in some territory, be it United States or any other country, it's maybe Spain, Italy, I don't know, will go and watch it, put their money into it and it'll break even. It doesn't deserve to though.
Yeah, coming in at 1 hour and 34 minutes, I can really see that being a very stretched 1 hour and 34 minutes, John. Just moving on now to number 8 in this top 10. It's grossed another 200,000 overall, 5.1 million, and its fourth week is Hereditary.
Yes, this is a much better performance in terms of total gross. Again, like much of the films this week though, it's not spectacular by any means in terms of weekend performance. I don't know what was going on at the weekend, Stephen. Maybe people were watching World Cup games or something. Maybe it was the England game that put people off going to the cinema. But listen, I enjoyed this film for what it was. I was quite disappointed in that people were sensationalising it as this generation's Exorcist, saying it was the best horror film in decades. It's not. It's not even the best horror film this year. A Quiet Place is significantly better. It was an art house film with horror elements. I says it before, I says it last week, I'll say it again. Very slow burn film for the first hour or so, and then it gradually descended into utter paranormal madness. Some brilliant performances in there from Alex Wolff and Toni Collette, and it was just a really introspective, claustrophobic look at grief and mental health and stuff like that, because the character Toni Collette played, she kind of descended into madness, but there was also a demon stalking him as well, Payman, as I did say in my review. I thought it was okay. It's doing well here, over £5 million gross. Its worldwide grossing is now sitting at nearly $73 million. Only had a budget of $10 million, so that is remarkable. And fair play to Ari Aster on his first feature-length directorial film. He's done well, and I can't really fault it. The only thing I would say is that it was kind of a mismarketed. I went in expecting something completely different. That's probably my fault though, to what I got. I says I like cerebral films. I love my Christopher Nolan films. If I didn't expect that going in to see this film, which is why it really took me aback. And I was thinking about it for a good week before I wrote the review. And that probably speaks volumes of what Ari Aster's done, but yeah, it's done well.
I don't think that is your fault, John. I don't think your expectations was anything to do with yourself. I think it was the promotion of the film. Yeah. Maybe not directly by the studio, but when, I don't know if it was film buffs or the studio itself, it was, pitching this against a film like The Exorcist. No. Yeah, you just don't do that. No. That's certainly going to set people's expectations very high going into the movie. And unfortunately, it's not to be. In its fourth week, it's now sitting there at number 8. I don't see this being in the top 10 for much longer, maybe a few weeks more. But just moving on to number 9 now, John. It's a film we were talking about last week. It's in its second week now, and it's grossed over another 200,000, grossing just under £1 million. This is a film called Sanju, and it's a biopic of the controversial life of actor Sanju Dutt, his film career, his jail sentence, and his personal life.
Yeah, I think this really speaks volumes for just how quiet this week's box office is in the United Kingdom, Stephen, when a foreign language Hindi only film is still within the top 10 in its second week. That's unheard of. We have discussed Polish films, previous Hindi Indian films, and they've just not lasted into a second week. But it's so dire, the box office at the moment, and I think I know the reason why. People are holding off till they see Incredibles 2 and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and obviously Skyscraper 2. So this is why these films are in the box office still. But its total worldwide gross, $57 million. Had a budget of 1.5 billion rupees. I don't know what the hell that translates to into dollars, but I presume it's probably made a decent profit. I can't really add much to it, Stephen. I don't speak Hindi. I'm not an expert in Bollywood Indian films. I'd imagine the likes of Ranbir Kapoor, Paresh Rawal, Manisha Koirala, Vicky Kaushal, Dia Mirza, Anushka Sharma, Sanam Kapoor. I'd imagine these are household names in India. Maybe I need to ask my Indian friend Praveen if he knows who these people are. I don't know them. I don't watch Bollywood films. That probably speaks more from my ignorance. But it must be a decent film, because listen, it's getting a very, very decent rating of 8.7 out of 10 with a not too shabby 23,600 odd reviews on IMDb. So listen, 2 hour 35 minute long film, foreign language film, still in the top 10 box office of the UK for a second week running. That's impressive.
It certainly is, John. Just reading some of the reviews over the week there, certainly getting good feedback, John, from fans alike. Especially if it's a biography as well. And in the Indian community, I'm pretty sure they all know who, this controversial actor is. Yeah. And it's, You know, if you've got a film career and a jail sentence, you're on to a winner there with a story. So, as I said, we've got a massive Indian community here in Glasgow, like most cities in the UK. Surprisingly, it's only in 2 theatres here in Glasgow. But nevertheless, as you said, getting 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb is very impressive. Whether or not it'll be there next week in the top 10, who knows? I don't think it will be. But just moving on to number 10 this week, this has come right out of nowhere. This is the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. We're big fans of the Beatles. You might not be as big a fan of the actual movie, John.
No.
What I will say though, John, is that this is the actual soundtrack has got one of our favourite songs from the Beatles on it, Hey Bulldog.
Yeah, this has earned a not too shabby £200,000 for the weekend in its opening weekend. I say not too shabby, I've been slagging the other films off for having that crossing, but this is a 50-year-old film, Stephen. It's been re-released. It's a special edition. I've never seen the film. I'd actually probably go along and watch this because I've never seen it, even though it is an animated cartoon film. I do recall, I think it was Ringo, or maybe one of the other Beatles saying in the anthology that every child throughout the generations gets this handed down to them. It's like a coming of age thing. You need to watch the Yellow Submarine. Well, clearly I missed that, sadly. As you says, massive fans of the Beatles, the both of us. This was something they had to fire out because they were tied into a 4 or 5 film picture deal or something like that. And also they were stoned out their nappers at this point and really didn't want to make a film. So what they did was they created an animated film and got voice actors in to play themselves, and they put it out as a Beatles title. It's got blue meanies and stuff like that, and as you did say, it's got one of our favourites, Hey Bulldog, in there as well. So every cloud has a silver lining. If the film's not your thing, then certainly the soundtrack is very, very decent, and it's got All Too Much as well, Stephen, which is another favourite from mine. It's nice to see people are connecting with this film to the point where it's earning £200,000, and I might go along and watch it because I'm a big Beatles fan.
Yeah, I remember Ringo saying this, goes down to every generation on the Beatles anthology all the way back in the 90s. He said this, so it's certainly true. It's, ironically, the Beatles didn't actually voice their own cartoon characters in this. Paul Iglesias is in there. He played Ringo. Anyone that doesn't know, his brother was Michael Iglesias, who actually took over for Ringo in the Thomas the Tank Engine series after series 1, so there's a bit of a connection there. Geoffrey Hughes as well. Geoffrey Hughes is a fine actor from the royal family. He was also Eddie Yates in Coronation Street, if you can go back that far. He played Paul, and if you actually listen, his voice is very similar to Paul McCartney. He's very softly spoken and quite distinctive. You get Dick Emery in there as well, John Clive. There's a list of people in there. It's one of those films, John, it's not one of my favourite ones from the Beatles, but I can understand, this was a contract fulfilment. They had to, I think it was a 3-picture deal, and by that point I think they were just bored being Beatles. We had the very artsy black and white Hard Day's Night, which was fantastic, from Richard Lester, and then the second film, Help, which was in colour. Was a bit of a hoot. It didn't make much sense. Some key scenes and funny scenes in there, but mostly remembered for the music at that point, from the Help album. But this film, as I said, it was a contract filler. It served its purpose. It's not one of my favourite ones. It's even as a kid, I wasn't that interested. I don't really like that animation. It reminds me a little bit of the animation that was used within the segments between sketches in the Monty Python series. It's not my cup of tea. It's very surreal, and it's for its time, 1960. It was quite a psychedelic era anyway, and it kind of tied in with the fashion and the look and all the feel and all that kind of thing. Has it aged? It has a little bit, I think, but the actual storyline is very relatable, and I can understand maybe younger kids getting some kind of kick out of it. I don't think it's one that I would go and see in the theatre. It's only one theatre here in Glasgow anyway. I predict that might be the Glasgow Film Theatre it's in. Yeah,
it probably is, Stephen. And what he says about the animation resembling that of the Monty Python guys. Obviously, George Harrison was good friends with Monty Python. I think he funded them, didn't he? Yeah. To do all the films. So maybe he got the guy in that was responsible for this animation to really help him out. I don't know. I've not seen it before. I may give it a bash. I might not. Depends on how I feel, really. If it is in the Glasgow Film Theatre, then it's a bit of a trek to go and see a 50-year-old animated film. So, who knows? But listen, that brings us to the end of this week's box office chat, where we discuss the previous weekend's top 10 films within the United Kingdom's box office. We would just like to thank you for listening to us, and we'll be back again next week.
Remember guys, if you enjoyed that episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.